But they listen though, which is a groovy thing. When the audience is quiet while you're playing, that's really great. That means they're listening.
Jimi Hendrix, the wild-haired left-handed wizard who rewrote the rules of electric guitar forever. The man who could make his Stratocaster weep, scream, and literally catch fire while channeling sounds from dimensions beyond human comprehension.
Like play to myself in the room or before we go on stage or something like this, or whenever
But behind that mystical flower power exterior and that otherworldly talent was a fierce competitor, harboring explosive hatred for musicians he considered frauds, posers, and unworthy pretenders to the rock and roll throne. Hendrix wasn't just a guitarist. He was a musical revolutionary who believed in authentic expression and paying your dues through blood, sweat, and countless hours of practice. When other artists achieved success through methods he considered manufactured, artificial, or musically bankrupt, his legendary perfectionism erupted into bitter resentments that consumed his competitive soul and shaped his entire career. Tonight, we're exposing the dark side of Hendrix's genius. From industry jealousies to artistic rivalries, these are the 6 bands that discovered the guitar god's peaceful exterior, masked the fury of music's most uncompromising purist. You think you know the peace-loving, spiritual Hendrix? Think again. This is the explosive countdown of the 6 bands Jimi Hendrix hated the most, and the shocking reasons their conflicts revealed the ruthless competitor behind the psychedelic legend. Number 6. The Monkees. The Monkees represented Jimi Hendrix's deepest fear about the music industry's future. That talent would become optional, and marketing would become everything. While Hendrix was revolutionizing guitar playing through years of grueling practice and spiritual dedication, these 4 actors were conquering television and radio without paying their musical dues, triggering a hatred that burned like acid in his soul. The conflict exploded when the Monkees' Last Train to Clarksville dominated radio while Hendrix was still unknown in America, struggling to find audiences who could understand his revolutionary approach to rock music. Music programmers witnessed his explosive fury at radio stations, choosing prefabricated pop nonsense over authentic musical innovation that required actual instrumental mastery. Studio musicians described Hendrix's obsessive mission to prove that real musicianship could destroy the Monkees' television show masquerading as a band. Recording sessions became increasingly elaborate as he crafted arrangements specifically designed to demonstrate superior guitar technique and songwriting sophistication that exposed their artistic poverty. According to industry insiders who witnessed recording sessions, Hendrix's resentment reached nuclear levels when the Monkees achieved massive success, despite being unable to play their own instruments on early recordings. He confided to close friends that they were corporate puppets destroying rock and roll's authenticity and accused them of insulting audiences' intelligence with manufactured personalities. The rivalry intensified when the Monkees began playing their own instruments and receiving critical respect, while Hendrix faced resistance from programmers who found his music too challenging for mainstream radio. Concert promoters overheard his bitter rants about their commercial achievements, where he accused them of stealing success from real musicians through television manipulation. Number 5. The Dave Clark 5. The Dave Clark 5 triggered Hendrix's explosive resentment toward British bands who achieved American success through simple formulas, while genuinely innovative musicians remained unknown. Their straightforward approach to rock and roll represented everything Hendrix despised about musical mediocrity, being rewarded over artistic brilliance and technical innovation. The tension began when Glad All Over knocked the Beatles off the charts while Hendrix was still grinding it out in Chitlin circuit clubs, unknown and unappreciated, despite possessing guitar abilities that dwarfed anything the British invasion had produced. Music journalists witnessed his fury at critics who praised the Dave Clark Five's energetic simplicity, while ignoring complex musical innovations happening in American clubs. Recording engineers described Hendrix's obsessive analysis of their commercial success, leading to increasingly sophisticated arrangements designed to prove that authentic musicianship could outperform what he called three-chord British nonsense. Studio sessions became missions to demonstrate superior instrumental technique and creative complexity that exposed their artistic limitations. According to band members who knew Hendrix during this period, his competitive fire reached dangerous levels when the Dave Clark Five dominated Ed Sullivan show appearances, while genuinely revolutionary musicians couldn't get television exposure. He told close associates that they were stealing attention from real artists through simple-minded crowd-pleasing and reducing rock music to kindergarten entertainment. The conflict intensified when British invasion bands continued receiving praise for revitalizing American rock, while homegrown innovators like Hendrix remained invisible to mainstream audiences. Music critics documented his cutting remarks about foreign bands colonizing American music with inferior products, revealing the nationalistic pride that fueled his artistic ambitions. Number 4. Hermans Hermits. Hermans Hermits represented Jimi Hendrix's nightmare vision of rock and roll's sanitized future. While Hendrix was pushing musical boundaries into dangerous psychedelic territories, these Manchester pretty boys were making rock music safe for parents in Middle America.
I got married to the widow next door. She's been married 7 times before.
Triggering a hatred that exposed his elitist views about artistic integrity and musical authenticity. The warfare began when Mrs. Brown, You've Got a Lovely Daughter dominated American radio, while Hendrix's revolutionary guitar work remained confined to small clubs and underground venues. Music programmers witnessed his explosive reaction to radio stations choosing nursery rhyme rock over complex musical innovations that challenged listeners' expectations and expanded their consciousness. Studio musicians described Hendrix's increasingly elaborate attempts to prove that authentic rock music could destroy Hermans Hermits' musical mediocrity disguised as entertainment. Recording sessions became crusades to demonstrate superior songwriting sophistication and instrumental mastery that revealed the artistic poverty of mainstream pop music. According to music industry insiders who witnessed his reactions, Hendrix's resentment exploded when Hermans Hermits achieved massive success despite what he considered complete lack of musical innovation or cultural significance. He confided to band members that they were emasculating rock and roll and accused them of turning rebellion into background music for suburban barbecues. The conflict reached its peak when Hermans Hermits continued receiving teen magazine coverage and television appearances, while Hendrix faced industry resistance for being too experimental and challenging for mass audiences. Entertainment journalists documented his bitter comments about manufactured innocence destroying rock's revolutionary potential, revealing his deep frustration with America's preference for safe entertainment over artistic risk-taking. Number 3. The Doors. The Doors should have been Jimi Hendrix's natural allies as psychedelic pioneers pushing rock music into mystical territories.
You know that it would be untrue. You know that I would.
But instead became targets of his most vicious artistic criticism. Jim Morrison's poetic pretensions and the band's limited instrumental abilities triggered Hendrix's contempt for musicians who relied on image and philosophy rather than musical mastery to achieve success. The tension began when both bands were establishing themselves as leaders of the psychedelic movement, with music critics comparing their approaches to consciousness expansion and spiritual exploration. These comparisons infuriated Hendrix, who viewed his own musical innovations as far more substantial than the Doors' pseudo-intellectual posturing disguised as rock music. According to studio engineers who worked during this era, Hendrix's resentment exploded when the Doors achieved massive success with relatively simple musical arrangements, while his complex guitar work required extensive studio time and technical precision. He dismissed Morrison as a poet pretending to be a rock star and accused the band of hiding musical limitations behind philosophical babbling. The conflict intensified when the Doors received critical praise for their literary approach to rock music, while Hendrix faced dismissive reviews that focused on his showmanship rather than his musical innovations. Music journalists witnessed heated exchanges between their respective camps, with Hendrix's associates suggesting the Doors were compensating for musical mediocrity with intellectual pretensions. Number 2. Cream Cream represented Jimi Hendrix's most complicated hatred, a band whose musical abilities he genuinely respected, but whose success triggered his deepest insecurities about recognition, respect, and his place in rock history. Eric Clapton's guitar mastery, combined with the band's critical acclaim, created a rivalry that consumed Hendrix and shaped every competitive instinct in his artistic soul. The conflict began when Cream burst onto the London scene with technical prowess that matched Hendrix's own abilities, creating the first real challenge to his status as rock's most innovative guitarist. Music industry veterans describe the tension when critics started comparing Clapton and Hendrix, with some suggesting that Clapton's blues credentials made him the more authentic guitarist, despite Hendrix's superior technical innovations. According to recording engineers who witnessed both camps, Hendrix's competitive fury reached obsessive levels when Cream's Disraeli Gears received massive critical praise for pushing rock music into new territories. Studio insiders described his frantic analysis of their arrangements and production techniques, leading to increasingly complex recordings designed to prove his superior musicianship and creative vision. The rivalry exploded during legendary London jam sessions, where both guitarists pushed each other to dangerous musical extremes. Concert witnesses described the electric tension between Hendrix and Clapton, with each trying to outplay the other in displays of technical mastery that bordered on musical warfare rather than collaborative artistry. Number 1. The Rolling Stones. The most shocking revelation is that Jimi Hendrix's greatest hatred was reserved for the Rolling Stones, the band that represented everything he desperately wanted to achieve but could never quite reach. Their combination of musical authenticity, cultural influence, and sustained commercial success created a jealousy that ate at Hendrix's soul and drove him to increasingly desperate attempts to prove his superiority. The conflict began in Hendrix's early London days when he witnessed the Stones' ability to command massive audiences through relatively simple musical arrangements combined with raw, sexual energy and rebellious attitude. Music industry insiders describe his shock at discovering that technical virtuosity wasn't necessarily the path to rock and roll immortality, triggering a crisis of artistic identity that haunted his entire career. According to studio musicians who worked with both camps, Hendrix's resentment exploded when the Rolling Stones continued achieving massive success and critical respect, while his own complex musical innovations received mixed commercial reception. He confided to close friends that the Stones were stealing attention from superior musicians through calculated rebellion, and accused them of dumbing down rock music for mass consumption. The rivalry intensified when Mick Jagger's stage presence and Keith Richards' songwriting received praise that Hendrix felt should have been directed toward his own artistic innovations. Concert promoters witnessed his bitter reaction to the Stones' ability to sell out stadiums, while his own shows, despite superior musicianship, often played to smaller venues and more limited audiences. So there you have it. The 6 bands that exposed the dark competitive spirit behind Jimi Hendrix's mystical exterior. From manufactured pop to legendary rivals, these conflicts revealed the ruthless perfectionist lurking beneath the peace-loving hippie image. Which feud shocked you most? Drop your thoughts below, smash that like button if this shattered your illusions, and subscribe for more explosive music revelations that expose the hidden wars behind rock's greatest legends.